When we've had that attack, when we've had that trauma, when we've had that verbal abuse, that bullying when we were young, let's just say, and we don't work with that, and then we get older, we're in these mixed survival stress states of the nervous system. The system cannot recover, it can't repair, it can't fix the gut lining, the immune system isn't being enhanced, cell repair just doesn't happen, we don't sleep well, we don't repair well, and then this is where these autoimmune conditions, these chronic conditions come in. It is Irene here. I am here to do a bit of a live. It's not going to be too long, but I wanted to connect some dots. I just keep seeing more and more and more growth and interest in this work, in the nervous system work, in somatic healing. However, we're in a bit of a weird space right now because a lot of people know what the nervous system is. They've heard the term somatic healing. A lot of people now know who Peter Levine is. People know we need to work on our trauma. We know we have to release trauma. But a lot of these concepts are kind of all over the place. And I'm trying to do my best this year. We're really trying to gel some of these together. Of course, what I'm teaching, I just finished a training call today for Smart Body, Smart Mind. This is my 12-week curriculum that we've been running for a long time now, since about 2015. Today was one of our final calls where we gelled everything that's been learned over the last sort of 2.5 months. And I kept going back to earlier training calls in March to connect the dots as to why certain practices are being done, why certain education is being done, and also the importance of how this is a long game. It takes time to rewire a nervous system that has dysregulation. We're not, I use the example today, we're not like geese. We're not like the animals out in the wild that have very similar upbringings, if anything, exactly the same, right? And so what works for one person isn't necessarily always going to work for another person, but the one thing we do know is we have this commonality within our autonomic nervous system, how it works, how it wants to work, how it wants to be built from the beginning. Other mammals have the need for safety, connection, food, shelter, protection from mother, and then they learn how to be in the world. We're exactly the same. The only difference is we have this human brain that allows us to learn, allows us to rewire and tap into the power of neuroplasticity, but this higher brain also ruminates, it awfulizes, it keeps us in victim mode, for example. So, back in the day, back in it was 2012 maybe, when I was working to get this stuff out online, one of the coaches I was working with, she said to me, and I respect her for this, and I also respect her for her answer. It was actually Amy Porterfield. Maybe I'll tag Amy here. And she said, when she saw my website stuff, she said, you have to take the word nervous system off of the site. True story. She said, you've got to get rid of that. I don't know what that is, and nobody knows what the nervous system is. True story. Hopefully some of you are laughing, because I said, no, I think soon everyone's going to know what the nervous system is, because it's so important and it's really the final frontier. We know so much about fitness and nutrition and getting rid of toxins and spiritual growth and working with energy centers, and there's so much, all the biohacking elements, which do play a part. But people still don't quite know back then what the nervous system is, and we need to teach them. So that's kind of been my job since 2012. Okay, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to connect some of the dots from some of the videos we've been posting on my YouTube channel. So if you're watching this right now, you're seeing it on Instagram, we might put this video up on YouTube, surf on YouTube. Thanks for being there as well. About 2 weeks ago, we posted a video called The Real Root of Anxiety. It's my husband and colleague Seth Lyon talking about what anxiety actually is. It's survival stress, by the way. It's stored survival stress. So there's a beautiful, just over 4-minute video that I highly recommend everybody watch. So go watch that if you haven't watched that yet. And in it, he just really speaks about this misconception of anxiety being a thought thing. It might create thoughts that are not accurate, but it inherently is rooted in the nervous system physiology. After that, we reposted, again, I'm just walking you through what my team and I have been posting here, but also on YouTube. We reposted an interview I did with one of my Smart Body, Smart Mind members. Again, SBSM is my 12-week curriculum. It teaches you the goods. I'll say that for now. Get on the wait list if you haven't learned about it. Head over and learn about it. Join us when we start again in September. But I reposted a video I did with a member. Holly is her name. She's still alive and well. I sent her an email like a week before we posted. I said, hey, we're going to reshare our interview that we did on her journey coming off of Xanax, specifically a class of drugs called benzos or benzodiazepines. And she said the trauma from coming off of the benzodiazepines was more intense than the trauma and PTSD from the shock trauma she had that put her on those. So she had a sexual assault, and of course her system was just completely riddled with PTSD and all the things that come with that. And, nobody knew. Her parents didn't know. The doctors really don't seem to know. Her story is a great one. So if you're someone who has struggled with PTSD, some form of attack, assault, or maybe you're wanting to get off of these pharmaceutical meds, I highly recommend listening to this video with Holly. She is, like I said, alive and well, and we're going to do a round 2, hopefully this summer. When we did this interview, this was kind of pre-big Zoom, and so her audio isn't that great, but she's still working as a massage therapist. She's doing her somatic experiencing training, and she's doing really well. Then this week, we posted, we're calling it the Physiology of Anxiety, and so this is a compilation of clips from the years here on this channel where I speak about what anxiety is, all the elements that kind of wrap in to this survival stress state that we call anxiety. And that went up on my YouTube channel just 2 days ago, so be sure to check that out. I wanted to just do a review of these because my team and I share a lot, and I know it can be overwhelming to keep up with everything, but much of what I say is the same thing. The key is, how can you put these dots together, as I mentioned at the top of this call, and start to understand the connections in relationship to your system and what your system needs. Now, yesterday, I think it was, or 2 days ago, we posted here in reel format, and we also posted this on YouTube, a clip from a show. I had to write it down. The Apple Tree Yard. Looks like it was a British show. And it is a great clip talking about what happens to a person when they are attacked. Now, this doesn't have to be sexual attack. It could be physical attack. It can even be being verbally attacked, being bullied, and how the system cascades into what we call a freeze response. Now, we need that freeze response. This is where this whole polyvagal thing comes in. I don't love the polyvagal as a theory, yes, but it's kind of been thrown out, and not many people explain why it is a theory. What does polyvagal mean and how does it work? So basically, this concept was birthed from Stephen Porges. He's a researcher, not a clinician, but a researcher. And he realized that mammalian physiology, so us and other mammals, we have a unique way in which we use our nervous system branches. I'm not going to get into it now because I've done other videos on polyvagal theory. So just look up my name and that if you want to learn more. But if we're under threat, attack, and we can't connect and subdue the situation, we will either go into fight or flight. If we can't fight, if we can't flee, we will go into what's called freeze, which is a mixed nervous system state of our sympathetic nervous system and what's called our dorsal shutdown. Fancy words, I know. This is part of the vagus nerve, puts us into shutdown with freeze. But here's what's interesting. This last clip that I shared, again, from the show, The Apple Tree Yard. You guys have been loving it. Let's just say that attack is done in this case, in this fictitious show. The rape in this case was over. They're talking about why she didn't fight. They say why, she froze. Now, what often occurs, and this is what occurred with Holly, my student that I interviewed a few years ago, and we reposted that, is if the system goes into a freeze, and if there isn't an intervention after that attack to move the survival stress out, her or his desire to fight, to flee, to feel the freeze drop off, and they stay trapped in that freeze state with fight, flight, under, and then that person goes on about their life. What often occurs, pretty much always, if that person survives, is they can't hold that charge of freeze, and then they go to the next line of defense along this polyvagal ladder, if you will, and that is shutdown. That is collapse. That is being lethargic. That is the system not being able to hold that charge. But the thing that's interesting is under that collapse still exists the freeze and the fight and the flight. So part of nervous system work, part of somatic healing, or all of it really, it's not just part of trauma release, part of getting into our nervous system and healing our nervous system and rewiring our nervous system and healing the vagus nerve. It's all of this, and then working with the system to bring it back out of that collapse, knowing that as we come out of that collapse, we are going to have to face the freeze, the fight, and the flight energies that have been trapped inside. For some people, decades. I have had to go through this in my own process. I was in a functional freeze state, not a lot of collapse in my system, not a lot of shutdown, but that comes with its own kind of, what we could say, surprises, because this is where one might feel that they're going backwards in this healing journey, and then they're like, why do I have anxiety? Why am I irritated all of a sudden? Why can't I speak properly? Why am I being forgetful? Why do I have no energy, etc.? And what is often occurring as we start to do this somatic healing, nervous system regulation work, all this stuff, is these layers, these old layers come out. And in order for us to understand that these are normal, and also to understand when we have to put a pause on intervention, because the system needs to integrate and it has to take in that shift. So we've just taken this big boulder out of the system that's been in there for so long. Maybe it's fight energy, maybe it's some freeze energy, maybe it's some flight energy, right? Maybe it's a memory of something. We have to let the systems in the body reorganize. I think of like a Tetris video game, right? Remember that game? Everything has to pack down and integrate before we do another piece. So this is why it's so important to take this work slow. We don't want to try to do these quick fixes where we're just trying to have miracle healings in like one session or in one weekend. So I wanted to just give a little kind of talk on that. The last pieces of content we've put out. If you're brand new here, go back a few weeks, start at, again, like I said, the real root of anxiety, and then work your way up. The reason I wanted to bring this up today is next week and a couple weeks after that, we're going to be talking about and bringing up the topic of autoimmune, chronic illness, autoimmune, fatigue, chronic pain, things like what we would call fibromyalgia, severe physical problems that really just feel yucky and make it such that it's very hard to live, very hard to digest food, very hard to have strong immune health, strong hormonal health. These folks often make up the bulk of those who are in my programs and courses. And I want to bring this next topic up of autoimmune, so I'm connecting the dots here. When we've had that attack, when we've had that trauma, when we've had that verbal abuse, that bullying when we were young, let's just say, and we don't work with that, and then we get older, and we're in this collapse state, we're in these mixed survival stress states of the nervous system, when we're in this, the system cannot recover, it can't repair, it can't fix the gut lining, the immune system isn't being enhanced, cell repair just doesn't happen, we don't sleep well, we don't repair well, and then this is where these autoimmune conditions, these chronic conditions come in. The tissues don't have vibrancy and flow because the system is in that collapse and shutdown because it couldn't fight, flight, it couldn't stay and freeze for very long, so then it drops. And so what I've seen is that even though everybody knows, now I'm going to go back to the top of what I was talking about, these topics, the nervous system, super popular. Healing trauma, super popular. Somatic exercises, super popular. I am by trade a Feldenkrais instructor, so I know all about Feldenkraisian movements that have kind of been now called somatic exercises. But that's another story for another day. My SPSM members know about this. But if we think about all these buzzy words that are flying through these social media worlds, I find and I'm seeing that people still don't understand what their nervous system really is, how it gets trapped in these survival responses, how that manifests when we stay stuck, and how common everyday ailments like, say, autoimmune, panic, PTSD, OCD, agoraphobia, Raynaud's, Crohn's, POTS, migraine headache, like all the things, all these syndromes, how those connect to trapped survival stress in the autonomic nervous system, and then how that ripples out to our tissues. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of the same thing as I always do over and over again this year, but I'm going to do my best to try to connect these dots a bit more because I'm just seeing a lot of people lost and confused because they're doing these movements, but then they're trying to release their trauma with this other thing, and then they're joining all these online summits to learn all these things. And I'm guilty of this. I'm on these summits as well. I'm very selective these days. Shout out to Alex Howard. He does, I think, some of the better online summits out there. I want to bring these together just so that people aren't confused. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope that, again, if you're new here, go back, watch some of these old videos over the last couple of weeks. Stay tuned for the next videos. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That is really where all the full content is. It's hard to do that here on Instagram. Also, if you haven't joined my email list, be sure to do that. It's just a little tap thingy away. Just go to my profile. There's a thing there that you tap, click. Then you get a selection of probably way too many things to choose from. Just make sure you get onto my email list, and then we send you emails most Mondays, what we're doing, what's going on. I am going to do some more drop-in classes. This July, I have been in a heavy teaching period since September, running Smart Body, Smart Mind. Again, that's my online curriculum, SPSM. We run that twice this year so far, or twice in the last 12 months. And I've been running my practitioner training. Shout out to the SPTers. We're finishing up in about a month. We've been together since September. They're doing their live practicums this week and the next 2 weeks, which is super exciting. So it's been busy. It's been a very busy time. But wanted to just pop in, say hello. If you did pop a question up top, apologies, I'm not going to get to that today. Chances are the question that you have, I have answered in the past 15 years on YouTube. So if you have a question, if you have a keyword, pop in the keyword like GI problems, Crohn's, or anxiety, or sleep problems, or panic. Put that in, and then my name, and I can almost guarantee something will pop up. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here and listening. And like I said, this will be the year to connect the dots, because I cannot stand the level of confusion that I am seeing out there in the world. The nervous system is important. Healing trauma is important. Releasing our trauma is important. But what is more important is understanding what your nervous system is and what it needs so that it can grow capacity and regulation. And from that, the releases happen naturally. They do. Trust me, they do. All right. Thanks, everyone. It's Irene here. One quick one before you go. First of all, thank you for watching this video to the end. I appreciate it. If you would like to start working with me and heading into my curriculums online, the best place to start is my 21-day nervous system tune-up. And next week, we're calling it a super sale. And it's a super sale because we're giving a very big discount to you guys who are here and following and want to do this work and learn this work and practice this work via my creations. June 16th and 17th, we will be sending out an email to everybody on my list. So if you're not on my email list yet, be sure to do so. We'll link something below here so that you can get on that list. And then when the sale goes on live on the 16th and 17th, you can get in at this discounted price. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching and being interested in this work. Take very good care.